Need help with the chat? You want me to read it or?
I got it. We're live. Hello, everybody. We are with Mr. Bigfoot himself, Doug TenNapel. Thank you all for joining us today. We're here to talk about Bigfoot Bill, the lowest carb book in comic book history, I think I might say.
Low carb.
Low carb.
Is that the Bigfoot Bill voice?
That is my version of the Bigfoot Bill voice, though I would never do his voice if there's an animated series. I've worked with too many actors.
Voice actors, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. I'd hire any one of them first.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure they do it.
Yeah,
sure they know what they're doing.
They're incredible.
How are you, Doug?
I'm so good, Mitch. I can't remember when I was better. Happy as heck.
Excellent. So tell me about your recent trip. Like, you disappeared for a couple of days. Well, you didn't really disappear. You were online. I saw you posting some videos.
Yeah.
What was this, like a secret mission? A conspiracy club? What are you up to?
It's a secret cult I belong to. A little secret society. You may know as Amway. No. I have these college buddies that I went to school with from 1984 to 1988, and we graduated together at Point Loma Nazarene College in San Diego. They're just the best. We were all the outcasts, so like we kind of sat at the geek table, and we just found each other, and we became the best of friends. And what we did was kind of to swear off girls. Every year during Labor Day, we would go to the desert and like complain. And then as soon as someone got a girlfriend, like they'd just be missing from the guys' trip. Mm-hmm. And now we're all married with family, and we've been going on a trip every year since, basically for 32 years straight.
That's awesome.
So we get a condo now, and we all hang out, and we just sit in the backyard and kind of gab, and it's very fun.
So right now, 10 of my good, probably, I don't know how many of them there are right now, but probably 8 to 12 of my good buddies are at Possum Kingdom Lake, about 45 an hour outside of Dallas, Texas, sitting by a luxury pool and hot tub in a very nice cabin that my buddies' in-laws own. And well, it's not a cabin; it's a full-on like near palace, I would call it. Yeah. In a ritzy area outside of this basically private lake, where we go once a year, the weekend after Labor Day, because it's not as busy. Right, the pool is always dead. It's always packed on Labor Day, and it's always dead the weekend after.
That's a good idea.
So they are down there living it up right now. They came by my house this morning to give me a big hug because I couldn't make it this weekend. This is the first weekend I haven't been to in like 5 years. Just got too many things going on.
You got to get back on that because those guys have your back forever, you know.
I know. I was on the phone with them earlier today, just kind of talking, and they're sending me pictures and all kinds of good stuff. And yeah, it'd be nice to be there for sure, but like it's just not in the cards this year. I'm juggling lots of stuff, and I can't take my eye off the ball. And we got to get this book out, and I can't leave Elizabeth under pressure and me just take off for a while. That's not fair.
You got to take care of the home first. They wouldn't want you there either.
Yeah. Gotta.
When I worked on Earthworm Jim, I couldn't go those years, 94, 95. I missed one in 98 when my company was hopping. Mm. So I get it. There's you make it if you can, and the guys will understand. They'll be there next year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always missed something. There's always something exciting, wonderful, or beautiful that happens, and I always love to go there and paint. It's nice to just kind of go and paint the landscapes, the mesquite trees, and the lake, I miss it. It's nice, but they're gonna have a blast, and I'll be back.
You bring oils, or is it digital or watercolor?
Watercolor. I bring watercolors, a little Schmink German brand of watercolor tins, little pocket paint brushes, and a sketchbook, and some fountain pens, and that's all I need to paint with. So.
I have those too. Last 2 months ago, our family got a cabin here in Tennessee. So my 4 kids went, and they invited 3 other kids from their home, from their school, and then my wife's best friend came. And I made a bunch of those little 3-inch by 2-inch watercolor paper. I had it all cut at Kinko's. So we had like hundreds of those. And I spread them out on the picnic table and gave everyone brushes. And at first, everyone was really shy. And then by the end of the weekend, man, everyone was painting all day. And it was really neat. The variety we came up with was a blast.
Yeah, everybody should paint. It's just, it puts you in touch with something that's deeper and natural, and it just we don't think about it often, but there's little neurons that fire and connective tissue that forms in your brain when you try to recreate the natural world through some pigment and some water or oil or whatever it is. And I think everybody should do it just for therapy.
Especially watercolors, because they're so inexpensive to get in. They're kind of harmless. I've used those little Crayola kids, the paints where you can just pop it open. I've done full commissions with those before.
Oh, wow.
And they look beautiful. So watercolor, doesn't cost you much compared to doing oils or acrylics as far as equipment goes. Very mobile, doesn't stink, water soluble, so your brushes will never go bad on you. There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody should do it for, every now and again, at least. So Doug, you started a company in 1998. What's this? Tell me about your company you started.
That was it actually started in 95, called the Neverhood. And that's the one that I pitched to Spielberg, and he funded me for 3 games. And the first one was called the Neverhood, which was a clay animated video game. And we had a 3-game deal. So it finished by 99, right around 98, 99, and we did our 3rd game. And that was when I learned what it was like to run a business in California. And I mean, it's nuts in California to run a business. It's bad. Tax bracket, paying everyone's insurance. I had, I think at the most, I think it swelled up to 12 employees, and I could barely handle it. We had like $1.5 million budget, had to pay rent. And I said, it's really weird because you'll probably learn this even with Red Rooster and stuff. If you want to control your own IP, you got to own the business, because the business says what gets done and what doesn't. So otherwise you have all these great ideas, right? And you have to go and beg Hollywood to go do them, or beg a video game company, please go do it. So instead I just started my own video game company and saying, we're going to do these ideas. They're all going to be independent. We're not going to do any knockoffs or sequels or anything. And we went out and got our own funding. And then suddenly you can do your own thing. So that's kind of in the spirit of Bigfoot Bill and doing comics like this. I always like running my own productions and doing my own thing, because I don't like having to beg someone else. It's just like, it's like 20 pitches just to get Cat Scratch on Nickelodeon. I had so many meetings, and they change everything. And, it's fine if you need studio money. And from time to time, I do need studio money. But I much more love kind of the independent spirit of doing your own thing. So what turns me on about Red Rooster is I just go, oh yeah, he's doing it. That's how you do it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Well, it's kind of like I feel like I can never go back.
Yeah. Well, if you get overburdened by taxes and payroll and all that, your first year, if you can survive that, you'll learn everything you need to know. And you guys have had a coloring business for a while too. But the bigger the business gets and the more moving parts there are, and you're relying on partners and other people, it's just every person is a negotiation on your team. So it gets old, and sometimes you'll long for just going to be a UPS guy, which is kind of how I felt a couple of those years. I'm like, oh, I'm going to crack up if I have to keep doing this business, because I'm just not the business side of it. I love pitching. I love the big ideas. I love inspiring a crew, but the idea of, taxes and stuff and paying rent, that is just a skill and a gift that I am just not into, if you know what I mean.
I get you. Junior Ruiz, check out Gusto, Early to Rise on Indiegogo. So Junior got his plug-in for Gusto. I haven't heard about that yet, but
Gusto. That's a good name.
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. Go check out Bigfoot Bill on Indiegogo. Well, let me throw the link again. in
Cool.
the chat. There it goes. Nurkish is here. Hello, Nurkish. Nurkish is going to come on my show sometime.
Yeah. He's a good
We were going to
guest.
do it once, and then we didn't line it up quite right. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have Nurkish on. I'm going to get to know the man behind the mask. That's for sure.
He's a good guy. Good guy. I'm trying to get him on. I think tomorrow he might come on my show. But
Cool.
we'll see.
Well, maybe I'll drop by for that.
Yeah. He's money in the bank. Money in the bank.
Did you have partners in your business? How did you put that together?
What I did was I took like a 1/3 share of the business, and then it was kind of split up among the other 10 guys would get shares, equal shares among the other 10. And it ended up working. Like if a royalty check comes in, that's how you'd split it up. So everyone kind of got a little chunk of something. None of our games ever really took off huge. Like Neverhood was probably my broadest distributed hit of them all, but it was because it was illegally pirated around the world. So it just blasted all over Russia, all over China, Poland. And I would get letters from people just saying, I was raised on the Neverhood. And so in America, everything is Earthworm Jim, and UK is Earthworm Jim through the mainstream cartridge market. But actually more people played the Neverhood, and hardly anyone in the US even heard of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you make it. Yeah.
Was this on PlayStation? What was your platform?
Well, Skull Monkeys, the sequel, we did another platform version of it on PlayStation, but it was a PC game. Was the first Neverhood game that and it did great. I mean, it did okay. It didn't do incredible, and the games journalists came after it, so that was kind of killed us with some reviews. But the people actually who got it actually loved playing it. We got very good reviews from people.
And it was claymation, am I right?
Yeah, so I have a background in clay and puppet animation as well as paper animation, and some computer animation. But it was clay animation because that's what we were all ready to explore. And it was rooted in I was a fine art major in college back in the late 80s, and I was doing fine art painting shows about a clay world called the Neverhood. So I would build little clay models, photograph them, and then blow it up and do oil paintings of them to kind of get the accurate temperatures and shadows and stuff on the actual paintings. And then when Spielberg said, you can do whatever you want, I said, okay, I want to do a Neverhood video game. It's about a clay world, and we're going to shoot it all in stop motion animation. And we built, we used 3 tons of clay. We built like a 25-foot long set it had a wood structure, but everything in the game was covered in clay at some point, as if it was a clay world. So that was, and we did ball and socket armatures. We used all of the guys that work at like Skellington Studios and Phil Tippett Studios, a lot of their model makers and stuff. A lot of the guys that do Hollywood horror effects in like the Leprechaun movies and stuff did some of our latex. We did have latex that we would paint to look like clay. And it was just a bunch of young guys just going for it. And we did the whole game in a year. We developed it, programmed it, got it out. We were DreamWorks' first project that started under DreamWorks and got released under DreamWorks.
Wow. So you've met Steven Spielberg.
I have, yeah. I pitched Neverhood at his house in his backyard.
Oh, wow. So tell us about this. Tell us about your experiences with Steven Spielberg. Do you have any embarrassing stories? How was he in person?
He is a very kind man in person, and he works very hard to not be a jerk, even though he has all the power in the world, right? He dresses very pedestrian, jeans and a t-shirt. His office is a mess. I got to go into his office, and there's like original Norman Rockwell's hanging on the wall. And as soon as he's not looking, I'm like touching them all. So I'm like touching the Norman Rockwell. Whoa, look at this. And there's like artifacts from like the ET spaceship is under glass in there, and Elliot on his bike, and the little stop motion model that became the Amblin logo. And, it's just like you're looking at your childhood, just artifacts of it hanging everywhere. But he was very kind. He was so creative and just open to doing a blind funding of us that he just said, yeah, go for it. 3-game deal. And he was a big fan of Earthworm Jim. Was really what got me the meeting with him. Is he just said, "You got the goods, kid. Come in, and we want to start a games division, and why don't you do some games?" And you like the idea of doing something crazy creative instead of kind of boring, which was a lot of other stuff that was coming in, very boring and safe stuff.
Does this happen anymore? Does this kind of magical stuff happen?
My whole life is stuff that doesn't happen. So it's weird that I get kids and stuff going like, I want to do what you do. And I go like, well, I don't know how you'd ever do that, because you have to be like, you have to perfectly thread this needle of coincidences and luck and a little bit of skill, but like just throw it right through that opportunity. When it comes, you take the risk. Sometimes you fail, and sometimes you get the biggest blockbusters of your life. You know, it's hard for me to really fathom as I look back on the opportunities, because that led to Ben Affleck was a huge fan of the Neverhood. So he was putting together a puzzle game on a TV show, and he invited me in to be an associate producer on it because he was a fan of Neverhood. So I was doing some puzzle work on a TV show. The president of ABC, who introduced me to Ben Affleck, was a huge fan. So I'm going to like Santa Monica to Stu Bloomberg's house. I mean, it's not Stu Bloomberg. Yeah, it is. It's Stu Bloomberg. His house, and he played Neverhood with his son, and he invited me over for dinner, and he goes, "Why don't you pitch a live action TV series?" This is right around the Alias days. And I'm just going, these opportunities are coming up, and I don't know how to plan that. You know, I don't know how to make like a meeting like that happen. They just kind of get thrown on your lap.
Yeah, it seems like everything is so is cordoned off and separated and studio driven and layers of bureaucracy now, and everything's been bought up by Disney. So. Netflix,
Disney, and now they're doing their own channels and things, and the floodgates are opening back up again. But there is still kind of a weird paranoia and protection that they're kind of trying to guard themselves too much. And it used to just be freer. When I pitched Earthworm Jim, I went into Universal, and Sid Scheidenberg was the president of Universal then. This is the biggest taco in the whole industry. Big old man, looks like Abe Lincoln with thick glasses on, you know. Stu Bloomberg is the guy that gave Steven Spielberg his shot 30 years earlier. And now I'm sitting there pitching to I'm not Stu Bloomberg, but Sid Sheinberg. And it's Sid, this big guy this is right after the 80s. So they're still all in these power suits. And he had like 11 men around the table. It looked like the Hudsucker Proxy, like old men all down the table in their suits. And they're all, "This is Doug TenNapel. He brought in a TV show idea called Earthworm Jim." And Sid Sheinberg goes, "Ha ha, that sounds funny already." And I'm sitting there. This is the first original thing I've ever pitched. And I'm just like shaking, going, "Sir, this is Earthworm Jim. It's about a worm in a super suit." So you got to imagine like the first time you ever heard that, it's new. So we all know it as old, but back then, you know, it's like, it's brand new, and you're going like, he could just say no and it'll never exist. And by the end of my pitch, he goes, because now you pitch to like all these mid-level managers, right? An assistant to an assistant, and then they get you up to the assistant, and they get you up to the main guy. Then he goes to the head, and then you've pitched it 10 times, and it sucks by the time you're done because they're all adding their ideas to it and ruining it. Sid Sheinberg at the end of the pitch, he goes, "Great, we'll take 13 episodes." And that was it. Like, that's how it used to be done. You pitched it to the guy who was in control of the wallet, and he gave you and then the last thing he said was, he goes, "Hey, I got an idea." He goes, "Let's throw some pigs in there, and we'll call it the Pigsford Pigs." And I didn't get the joke at all. And all the men around the table laughed, like, ha, 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 ha. Like, you could tell they had to laugh because it was their job. And I kind of laughed like, "That's good. Pigsford Pigs. I don't understand."
I've been in that situation. Not quite like that, but
No.
yeah, those awkward inside jokes.
Yeah.
Were they reading your body language? I mean, were you trembling though? See, my thought is I've been in a couple meetings that are similar to that, and it's
Yeah.
like they don't seem to care what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I was in one like a month and a half ago with I can't say who, but it was a big player.
Kim Sarkeesian. You can come clean with us, Mitch. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And it was like it was just the one guy, right? But talking about what I wanted to do, and here's the vision. I'm laying this all out, and like I just listening, and I wasn't getting any reaction, and I'm just like trying to be passionate about my deal, and then I could just tell I was getting sized up. Like he was just reading my body language.
Yeah.
But he was also listening to the idea and how it scales and like what we could do with it, and then like in 5 minutes, like no, we went on for like 15 minutes, and then he just like warmed up completely transformed, and like I felt like he just observed me for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then just like he said, okay, this is the kid. I'm not a kid anymore, but
they can smell a rat. They can smell a rat. So I was nervous on the inside, but I definitely projected confidence because I was on, and this was like my career at stake, and I didn't want to blow it. So I think they can tell that you're nervous, but they don't disqualify you for being nervous. They disqualify you if they think that you're dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference there because they've had all kinds of nervous pitches. The thing that they're worried about is dishonesty, is a screw job, is more if they smell, that you're selling them something that's not legit, or that you're presenting yourself in a way that's not legit. That's what drives them crazy. Because even guys that go in and go, look, I've got this great idea, but I don't know what I'm doing. They're kind of okay with that if you're aware that you're new or that you need help or whatever, because they can give you help then. It's the guys that think they know everything, that they know they're full of crud, that they go, this is going to be trouble,
Yeah.
So they're wise. My rule on pitching is just put yourself in the mind of the people who you're pitching to. Like, be kind to them, and you're not trying to trick them into supporting you. You're just trying to give them a clear idea of what your show is. Give them a clear idea of what kind of person you are. So you can't fake being someone else because they'll smell that. And keep it short. That's really my only real rule, because they're busy and they've got 1,000 pitches, and you don't want to ever bore them, because if you bore them, or when the meeting is over and they're ready to move on and you're still talking, that's a bad place to be.
Todd DeWolf in the chat says a Kraken romper.
Romper.
Question. A romper. You know what a romper is, Doug?
Oh yeah, like a onesie for a kid.
Yeah, well, yeah, or for a woman, but yeah, for a kid, yeah, I suppose it's probably more.
Yeah.
I think women wear rompers. I don't have any in my wardrobe personally. But.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, we'll have to work on that. I do want to do a Kraken t-shirt that's just kind of a workout shirt for guys who need the power of the Kraken, like me. And I just want to do like the eyes and the mouth in the middle. And but I don't have time to do a t-shirt right now, so I really got to stick. But I might do it on the next campaign.
Yeah, I people want hats and t-shirts too for Red Rooster. We're going to work on that. We're going to work on that as we approach the fall. So we're going to make it happen. But I would love that. I think it's great. We're just with the big mouth and the eyes, and and you could do a companion backpack with the tentacles.
Yeah, strap them on there. Strap on the Kraken and unleash the power. You can keep your energy bars in there for extra power.
Yeah, that would be the best. I mean, I could see that kids lining up to get their Kraken backpacks and their Bigfoot Bill t-shirts. And then,
you got the vision, man. You got the vision. I like guys with vision. Because people do, they want to stay close to the characters they love. And I think wish fulfillment is a big part of what draws people into these books. And wearing the t-shirt would be a blast, just a cool green. And I'd love it. I'd want to wear one. How's that?
So speaking of wish fulfillment and selling books, getting book, how do you get into the headspace of creating something like a Earthworm Jim or a Bigfoot Bill to speak to kids and get them excited? Like what do you think about when you're approaching something like this?
Number one is I have a frustration that say something doesn't exist out there that I want to exist. So I'm like going, I wish this was out there, and I guess I have to make it if it's going to get out there. So there's like an earthworm Jim shaped hole in culture as I see it. And I go, oh, I'm the guy to make that. And then with Bigfoot Bill, the same thing. I'm going like, what do the people need to read right now that they don't have and only I could make? I go, oh, Bigfoot Bill. You know what I mean? It kind of starts to make sense. And that's what keeps you from doing derivative stuff, because derivative stuff, you're going like, well, what's safe? What can I piggyback on top of and make kind of my knockoff version of it? That's fake news. That's low carb. I mean, high carb, I should say. High carb, low fat. We want high fat, low carb. So I just think, I think I'm the guy to make this. I'm the guy to make this, and it won't exist without me. And I'm bummed that they can't have this to read. So if it's not missing from culture, right? If I'm just going to knock off Ninja Turtles, or if I'm just going to knock off, The Simpsons, then why make it? Because it already fills up that place in culture. So I'm looking for the missing piece. And a big thing is wish fulfillment. Like I want to make characters where you're rooting for them and you're going like, I hope he wins. I don't know if he's going to win, but I hope he wins. If you can get an audience to think that way about your character, then you've really set up a good story. And it takes a lot of work for them to hope this guy wins and not just kind of read through the pages and not really get involved. Yeah. So you want them rooting for him. And then my third thing is like a clear design. Doesn't have to be unique. It has to be clear. So I always think of my characters as stickers. It's like when you put a sticker on something, it standalone needs to be entertaining. It's like if you look at like Gumby, or you look at the Gorillaz band members, or you look at the Simpsons, or you know what I mean? Whatever, Red Rooster is a great iconic character. You put that sticker on and you go, just standing there, I want to know more about him. So if you look at Bigfoot Bill, he starts, and you see the Kraken attached to him, and you see his goofy face, you start going, what's that guy's story?
Yeah.
That's what a single image character, a lead character, should do.
Yeah, I like that. I'm totally on board with you in terms of thinking about what's, like, you got to, like, part of, we're business people in many ways, and what they say in business, like if you're making a product for any kind of market, you look for the gaps to fill. So we're in business of entertainment, and there are plenty of gaps in entertainment. Like you look at what's not out there, what doesn't exist. And that for me, that was the Red Rooster is totally that for me, as well as the Futurist, but really the Red Rooster. It's like, nobody's doing this. Why hasn't somebody done this before?
Right. And I see it as a movie. It's going to be a movie or a series, a live action series. Like it just totally reads like it. You get that in front of the right people, and it's going to go.
I hope so. We're working on it. We're counting on it. We're gonna make it happen.
The other thing is, it's not that my stuff has to get made. It's that it should get made. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like Red Rooster. If someone's doing their job, it should get made. And I'm not talking about you doing your job. I'm talking about a Hollywood exec. Mm-hmm. If that comes across their desk, they ought to say, yep, this should be made. And Bigfoot Bill, it should be made. It doesn't mean that it will be, because they're not always doing their job.
Well, I think I think they're going to wake up and at some point. It's not like they're not asleep to this, I suppose. But something like a Bigfoot Bill or a Red Rooster, where you, like, if you're doing something like, I don't know, Red Sparrow, maybe you can sell 1 or 2 tickets. A guy and his lady friend go, or whatever, to see this cringy movie. Yeah. But you sell Bigfoot Bill, mom and dad are going to want to bring grandma and the kids, and maybe bring the nephews along. You might sell 8 tickets in one. You make one sell, and then the whole family comes, and you've sold 8 tickets, and the theaters are going to be like, well, I'd much rather run Bigfoot Bill big on opening night and for 3 or 4 weeks, or Red Rooster, because I know I'm going to sell. The studio is going to be able to, on one sell 4 to 6 tickets or whatever. And I think that's just a much better bargain, more family content. And by family content, I mean not like derivative, cheesy content or whatever, but things that families can be challenged by and then talk to their kids about later and enjoy together and be enjoyed on multiple levels, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like when I see Suicide Squad, I'm not going to take my kids to see anything with the word suicide in the name.
Yeah.
That could have easily been a boppy, Beetlejuice-like, fun, irreverent, everybody movie. But they just had to harden it up. And so they lost my family. They didn't just lose, the kids' tickets. They lost mine too. So there's 6 of us that didn't go see Suicide Squad, a comic book world. And that's the thing is I like doing the family entertainment that has something there for the dads. Like it's like Ghostbusters, there's something there for the dads. There's something there for the kids to love. And if you cross that line too much, then you don't just lose the kids, you lose everyone. Because why do, parents don't always like going to movies without their kids. You can only afford to go to a couple, here and there with everybody. So you want them spending their tickets on the big for everybody items. We go see Pirates of the Caribbean together. We go see Star Wars together. And if they start pulling crap in Star Wars, like I hear they might do, then maybe they'll lose our ticket.
They'll lose a lot of people's tickets. That's for sure. So we got 123 people are piling in now. So I think we've had a little conversation. Let's sell them on Bigfoot Bill now that we've got a crowd. Why don't you tell us what's your pitch on Bigfoot Bill? Tell us more.
Sure. Bigfoot Bill takes place in this the crypto zone, which is where our deep state government keeps all things that go bump in the night. So Bigfoot's in there. The Kraken is in there. Loch Ness Monster's in there. His name is John Loch Ness. The Chupacabra is in there. Slender Man, the Jersey Devil. All these the unicorns are in there. All these fun, wonderful creatures, and no one knows about them because the government wants to control all their power. And it's not our U.S. government. It's a splinter, bizarre black ops operation, kind of like Men in Black. And Bigfoot Bill is this dreamer, and he knows there's an outside world, and he wants to go see it. He's the first one that wants to escape, and he finds out that from Poseidon that Poseidon just needs his finger back. They cut off his finger in the 1800s to limit his powers, and the finger is what gives him control of the Kraken, which he inherited from Hades. So Bigfoot Bill ends up going into the air vents, and he ends up falling into the secret room, which is where they keep Poseidon's finger, and he snaps it on his gauntlet. Anything he puts on his gauntlet, it's like Bigfoot magic, sticks to it. And instantly the Kraken leaves Poseidon's side, breaks through all these solid walls of 15 inches of cement, and wraps himself around Bigfoot Bill and becomes kind of his indentured servant. He has amazing powers. He's been around for 5,000 years. He's death from the beginning of time, from the depths. And so he's kind of older and wise, and Bigfoot Bill's like this childish, goofy Bigfoot who has total control of the Kraken. And he uses the Kraken to break out of the cryptozone, and he spills out on the streets of LA. So all these animals that are supposed to be secret suddenly all get out like Ghostbusters. They're, getting into people's stuff. They're going crazy, and Poseidon escapes also, and he has a death wish against all human beings because they've stopped believing in him, so his powers are limited. But if he performs a great catastrophe, he'll gain power if more people believe in him. That's how the Greek gods worked. So Bigfoot Bill, he at first just goes into the world kind of to screw around, and then he realizes he's responsible, and how will he make things right is kind of the question, and what will happen. So in this first book, he faces the Mothman, who is true evil incarnate of all these animals. And it's where he first kind of has to decide if he's going to take the sides of humans, whom he loves, or if he's going to take the side of his fellow cryptozoological creatures and help out the Mothman.
I love it. I love it. I think everybody needs to go check it out. Mr. Thundaro's been throwing the link in the chat. The link is also in the description. Let's sell some Bigfoot, Bill, and let me pull it up. Let's see where we're at, and then let's check where we're at the end of this broadcast.
Sure.
I think we've already sold some. Maybe
You already have. I think it started at 55.7. It started to 55.8. I have 950 backers. I'd love to get 1,000 backers is what I'm aiming for. That's a good print run. And just to give you guys an idea of my books, I'm totally transparent in how I make these books. So I do live streams I just did a writing session today in Final Draft live. So my commenters were helping fix my grammar. And I'll do all my pencils, all my inks until about the last third of the book when I don't want to give stuff away. But I'm going to do a whole lot of work online so you can be part of it. This is an exclusive Indiegogo print run. I'm not trying to do this to get it in stores right now. I want to really honor the Indiegogo backers with a first exclusive print run. There's all kinds of goodies that we've already unlocked in perks because this thing fully funded at 15 grand in 12 hours. All of this extension is going to increase the quality of the books and help pay my crew to do things like color it and letter it and stuff like that. And the print run, we've already upgraded the paper quality. I put in a terrible bookmark designed by Nurkish.
Yeah, I saw that. I liked it.
Ugliest bookmark ever made, and I love it because Nurkish is a pal. And if you my sketchbooks that I did on Kickstarter, I sold those for $25 each for a $25 donation. And I did not release them in stores. They regularly go on eBay for $125. They're just not available. So this is how you get the book. And I really want to honor my Indiegogo people. So, and each book is signed, pay a little more, and you can get the sketchbook there's a black and white page at the bottom of the whole campaign that shows what kind of quality is going to be in that sketchbook. It tells the backstory of Poseidon. It'll be a little complete mini story because I didn't have to have room to put it in this book. I got so much story to cram in.
We're at $55,813 for Doug TenNapel's Bigfoot Bill graphic novel on Indiegogo. I'd love to see you guys help push it over 56. That's not too much to ask.
No, that'd be great.
I think that'd be great. We have there's somebody here in the chat. Where did I see that? Dank Plank. He says, I backed both of you at $50. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Django Manco, thank you for $5 super chat. He says, my grandparents' house was filled with Norman Rockwell prints. I studied history, so I'm excited for Red Rooster. Also excited for Bigfoot Bill. Yeah, I found I have a huge oversized, very vintage. I don't know how old. I need to see how old it is. Like probably early 70s. I don't know if that counts as vintage. Norman Rockwell book I found at an estate sale in like a whole pile of books for like $1. It's like, meaty, like this thick, like almost everything that every finished piece he's ever done and many drawings.
That's $1,000 book.
I know. And I went up to them and they're like, I think this might be mispriced. I mean, it's real torn. It's been used and the cover's missing, but dude, it's worth a pretty penny. And I picked it up for like $1.
They look good. The prints look good.
Yeah, the prints look amazing. There's some that gate fold out and stuff. Oh, it's like what a find. Yeah, I love it when you find things like that.
I got to see his paintings. There's a Frist museum here, and they did a moving, traveling Norman Rockwell show, and I got to see a bunch of his originals. They had an original painting in my college at Point Loma, hangs in the library, and I would just study his paint work on it up close. I'm just mesmerized by him. He's amazing.
Yeah, I got to go ahead.
He and Leindecker of that same period.
Yeah. A year, no, that was 2 years ago. I can't remember. So have you heard of a museum called Crystal Bridges?
No.
So it's a newer art museum, American art museum. It was funded by the daughter of Sam Walton.
Yeah.
And I forget her name. Is her name Stacey?
I know you're talking about. I know the Walton.
Something Walton. I forget her name now. I know people that know her actually. But yeah, well, I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. The museum is in Bentonville, which is the home of Walmart, and the museum was built. I don't know, was it 7 years ago? Anyway, it's very, very new. It's so beautiful. They spent a ton of money on it. The Waltons really, really care about arts and culture and American art, especially. And so 2 years ago or so, they had a Norman Rockwell exhibit. Essentially, it was so cool. We made a special trip up to go see it and spent all day up there. And it was like just seeing him in person was. It was mind-boggling and wonderful. Yeah, uplifting. It was kind of a spiritual experience in many ways.
Yeah, he was the great American painter. There was none other like him. You know, it's just all these, and I love Pyle. I love all the classic illustrators too. But I'm just saying and John Singer Sargent, who all those guys were studying anyways.
Well, if you're ever in Arkansas, we're going to take you.
Okay.
So it's
how far is Arkansas from Tennessee? Are you guys touching us?
Yeah, we're like Memphis. Memphis is right across the Memphis Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville not all the time, but at least once or twice a year because my Patrick Stiles, who I created the Futurists with, he's been a longtime collaborator. He lives near Franklin.
That's where I am. I'm in Franklin.
Yeah, he lives near Franklin. You guys really live within miles of each other.
Yeah, have him. Have him come over. I'd love to have him over.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to send you this chat and he can get to know you and you guys need to talk story and stuff and get to know each other because we've created a lot of stuff together.
Oh, how cool. Next time you're in town, I have a guest bedroom with a shower in the basement so you can hang with us too. Come over and pop in. I'll give you guys we'll take care of you at the TenNapel house.
Yeah. I think he's coming to Little Rock in a couple of weeks or so. So, anyway, we'll definitely meet up soon. Yeah. We'll cross paths very, very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it will make it to Bentonville. That would be awesome. We could go and see the musium. Right now they have a Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit, which is a little weird.
A lot of orchids.
Yeah. And Ethan was down. We toured it. We took a tour with Ethan and it better not be porn, but it was pretty much all
pretty
porn.
Close. Yeah. Very human anatomy-ish that Georgia O'Keeffe was. But it's beautiful. I mean, she's amazing. The orchids and all the flowers and stuff and just the flow of everything. I studied her in college back in the 80s. I had to do a report on Georgia O'Keeffe.
So my buddy, Judge Reinhold, who's a neighbor here in Little Rock, he lives at the other side of the neighborhood from me. And he and his lovely wife and his young daughter. He has I think they just sold. No, they're out there right now getting it ready to sell. The house out in Arizona, which is like the same town. It's like this little arts community out.
Is it Scottsdale?
Yeah, it's outside of Scottsdale, where Georgia O'Keeffe was, and he knows people that knew her, and they were like these elder people in town. And anyway, they bought like this old schoolhouse and remodeled it and made it in this like really cool desert like little artsy.
I saw a documentary on that back in the day. My wife is from Scottsdale, is how I know Arizona, and her family had a bunch of they owned art galleries. So that watercolor back there is from a guy named Francis Bouguereau, not the Bouguereau. This is Francis Bouguereau, and he was a Scottsdale, Arizona watercolor artist, and it's just a beautiful piece.
Nice.
It's of a flamenco dancer. It's one of the best watercolors I've ever seen. I got it for a steal on eBay.
Yeah, Judge is always collecting art. I love going over to his house. He's always got some new. He's a quirky guy, as you might imagine. So he's always got some like quirky new painting that he's picked up and whatnot. He's a fun dude.
Judge.
He's one of our Lake Weekend guys, and he can't go either because he's with his elder mother. But he goes to the lake with us too at Possum Kingdom.
How neat!
Oh, it's so cool. He's got so many stories. Oh, he's a storyteller like you wouldn't believe. He has us in stitches.
He knows where the bodies are buried.
Yes, he does. He has. I mean, he was there in the heyday of those early '80s. And
I loved him in Ruthless People. He was so good.
Yeah. And he's a storyteller too. I mean, you guys need to hang out sometime. I think you guys would get along famously.
My kind of people.
Yeah, you need to get you to Little Rock. and meet all my friends, and we'll hang out with Judge. Yeah. We got to make all this happen.
I think Angie has a sister in Arkansas somewhere. I think she has a sister in there. I can't remember if it's Alabama or Arkansas. Forgive me.
Does she have a lot of sisters?
Just a lot of A state names to
Okay.
remember. That's what I'm having a hard time with. Hey, we're at 55,948. We're getting there. We're
Oh, sweet.
We're like 1.5 backer away.
This is
So
awesome. Yeah. Well, you put out the call and the chat answers. That's
so how did you end up in Arkansas? How'd you end
I
up
grew up here.
I
I was born here. The Brightweiser clan. My grandfather, great grandfather, moved here from wherever, Illinois or New York or something like that, and yeah, so we have kind of deep roots here. And then my other side of the family is the Rice clan, and they've been here for quite a while. And there's some Cherokee on that side of the family, and so we're just pretty much Arkansans through and through. We've been here for a while. My grandfather has a couple of farms. He owns 2 cattle farms, one that he inherited from his father, and the other that he built on his own after he retired from the bauxite mining plant. With Reynolds, there's big bauxite mines here, so which is what you make aluminum out of. And so Reynolds with the aluminum foil company. I grew up in these. The factories are dead now. So I grew up in when I was in Alcoa. Alcoa is the other one, and they're they're both huge companies, and they mined aluminum 10 miles from my house where I grew up. When I was little, they were still mining stuff, and my grandfather and his friends they were in their 50s and had all retired well and all this kind of stuff, and that the plants were all winding down. And as I got into high school, they pretty much became empty shells,
shuttered.
And anybody and now that's just the towns are still, they kind of suffered for a little while, and now they're prospering again, and there's pretty good
infrastructure besides those steel mills. They survived, and if it was all hinging around that steel mill, they're just ghost towns.
Well, some of the littler communities that were further away from the interstate, they kind of withered up. But pretty much, now they're close enough to Little Rock that they're basically all suburbs. So they become nice communities for people that commute into Little Rock proper to work in the hospitals or schools or universities or whatever we have here.
Yeah. So it's the infrastructure. I'm from a small farm town, so I was born in LA, but in 4th grade, I was raised up in the San Joaquin Valley of California, which is where all the produce is picked. It's where it's just south of where George Lucas is from in Modesto. So we always got to see the Star Wars movies before anyone else did. Like Star Wars opened up there in Modesto in his hometown. And we worked in fields. So I was a berry worker. I picked berries. I worked at Foster Farms, chicken in the feed mill. Like those are my summer jobs, were these kind of farm-based things. And it's kind of where I got my roots from and I instantly went right into fine art, right? So everyone else in fine art, it's very urban, kind of squirrely. And I'm this farm guy doing paintings is kind of my background. And Earthworm Jim takes place in Turlock, which is right outside my hometown in the San Joaquin Valley. I set it in Turlock as a tribute to my upbringing.
That's awesome.
So I'm a redneck artist like you.
Yeah. Well, it's 2 of a kind, I think, in many ways.
Yeah.
So let's go back to 1996. This is when you met. You had already done Earthworm Jim at this point, right?
That's right.
This is when you met Spielberg.
That's right.
How old were you?
I was 27 when I created Earthworm Jim. So I was probably 29 when I started the Neverhood.
Okay. I was picturing you just a little bit younger, and I was thinking, man, that seems like a lot of success. But then again, I had reasonably decent amount of success in my 20s as well.
Yeah. I was 23 when I got married. So that's when, right out of college. And I didn't get into video games probably till I was 24 or 25. So I was doing video games for a couple years before Earthworm Jim happened. Maybe I was 26 when I did Earthworm Jim, but I was still, you know, it was the first 26 years in art was starving. You know, it was just like you're hustling and just trying to find that way in and nothing. You know, I was talking to artists and every Disney artist I could find anywhere, and there was no internet then, so you couldn't meet people. It was very hard to even find an address just to mail something to someone. I tried getting my comics syndicated through the papers. I got pretty close through Universal Press Syndicate, who do Calvin and Hobbes. One of their editors kind of took me under his wing, and it just never took off. Lots of failure.
So you went to school in California, right? So
yeah.
I mean, that kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage. But when you left college, what was your ambition? What did you set out to do, and how did that play out over the 4, 5, 6 years it took you to really make some headway?
I graduated in '88, and I started as an intern at SeaWorld in San Diego as a muralist. So I was doing kids murals in their kids zone. I was terrible, just real clumsy and spilling paint. And, you know, it was an awful job. It was tough because they put me in they started putting me in like a scene mover, like for their ice skate show. I'd move giant blocks of fake ice for their ice skating show, and hanging lights. I was a master electrician. So I'd hang lights for them and for a theater down the Globe down in old San Diego. I lit a couple shows, and I was just kind of out of work and kind of making it as a illustrator. And we got married in '90, and I remember my wife and I living on, I think it was $4,000 a year in illustrating.
Jeez.
Like that paid all the bills. It was just dirt poor in a 1-bedroom apartment.
I've been there.
Yeah. With just the waft of pot smoke coming through the walls from all our neighbors who were in construction. And you're just trying to make a go of it. My wife, she said, you know, I married you knowing that we'd probably end up living in a car someday. You know? And it was the first animation video game jobs that came. And that was pretty quick. Within my first year of marriage, I was there. And it was at the beginning of the '90s cartridge boom between Super Nintendo and Genesis, and they couldn't make games fast enough. And there were a ton of video game companies in San Diego for some weird reason. Sony was down there, and there were just a lot of companies, and they were fighting for us. And all of our salaries just started doubling every year for like 4 or 5 years. The income just went through the roof because we were there at the right place at the right time on the front end of a movement. So again, lucky. Happened to know how to do a little bit of animation, and it was only 16 pixel art, 16 pixels tall by 8 pixels wide were what the character sprites were made of. So you just do a little walk cycle in an 8 by 16 pixel guy. It's very easy just to kind of be a junk animator and just kind of throw it in. And I worked on a ton of games, and that's really where I got on my feet financially. And then once Earthworm Jim happened in '93, as I came up with him in fall of '93, I got that job probably by, I would guess, November, December of '93. And it was big money during that whole boom through the mid '90s is what happened. And, then the stock market crash right around 2001 with 9/11 happened. The .com boom popped, lost everything.
That's when I graduated college.
Yeah. So you went into that market.
Yeah, I graduated college in 2000, and I was going to be a comic book artist. I had drawn. I knew it. Like I just felt compelled and called to do it. I loved stories and heroes, and I wanted to. And I knew I had the ability.
Were you an art major in college?
I was, yeah.
Like illustration or fine art?
I just have a BS art degree, so it's just I just focused on anatomy, drawing, and painting. I've been painting. Yeah. I toyed around with being a fantasy painter because I was really into Dungeons and Dragons and the books and Star Wars paintings and like Dave Dorman and Keith Parkinson and Larry Elmore and many others.
Chris Struzan and the
yep.
Who were the brothers that did all the Hobbit art?
What
were their names? Brothers Hildebrandt.
Yeah, there you go. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started painting very young, and yeah, so I kind of came into college with like a kind of a big advantage over most of my classmates because I had just I spent so many hours as a younger person in high school and junior high, and even earlier, painting in oils and watercolors and drawing and like trying to create my own movie posters and fantasy art and dragons and comic books and like I was pretty dedicated to my craft.
Yeah.
But then I came out thinking I was hot stuff because I was the best in the class, like without a doubt, like and always had been.
Yeah.
And put in the work and everything and was doing it the right way. But I came out in 2000 and just like left Arkansas and started hitting convention circuits, moved to New Jersey on Cliffside Park, New Jersey, which overlooked the Hudson River and I could see Manhattan from my apartment, which is as close as I could get financially to New York City, which is where I needed to be to get into comic books because internet, I didn't have a computer. I couldn't afford a computer. So I was using internet at the library to try to do correspondence or get emails or whatever. And so I came into that market and like I would do portfolio. If I had a nickel for every time that someone told me, you know what, your stuff's pretty good, kid, but if this was 5 years ago, I'd hire you right now. Or if this was 3 years ago, like you'd be in, but it's just not a good market or whatever.
Yeah, times are rough now. Thanks for arriving when times are rough.
Yeah, and so it was like
when I was in high school, I applied to be a grill cook at McDonald's, and there were 120 applicants in front of me. That's how bad it was in 1983. So go ahead. I hear you on the tough job market.
Yeah, well, kids graduating today, I mean, just looks like things are looking very, very up for a lot of different industries, not for every single one, but it's very good. I think it's a good time for a lot of people, depending on what you're getting into. Just be smart about it. But yeah, I've weathered a couple of storms, the 2001, and then just hustling, trying to get into this business, and then finally cracking it in 2005 with Drax the Destroyer, and then went right into Captain America stuff. And then my star kind of just really rose from that.
Oh, that's great.
And then, and then sort of 2008, everybody got walloped no matter what you were doing, you know?
Yep. We lost everything in 2008 again.
Yeah.
Had to rebuild.
Do you personally had struggled in 2008 as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was I had a house that was a little too big for me to afford in Glendale. And there was like 2 years in a row, you know, I've got 4 kids, a nanny, an outrageous house payment I can't afford. And I made like 20 grand a year for 2 years. And that is enough to completely wipe us out. So we had to real quick sell the house. We lost all of our equity that we'd built for 15 years in houses and just kind of had to start over.
I'm so sorry. That's a gut punch.
This goes back to the whole, we love our wives because they're with you no matter what. And you know what? You can have the house as long as my family is okay. And, you know, when you marry an artist, you can be in for some pretty rocky times, and easy come, easy go. You know, you make a lot of money in art, and then suddenly you can lose a lot of money in art. And every day it's like you're always having to hustle. Like, you know, you come up with a new idea and it's like a new independent operation that you roll out, this brand new business. It's not like there's a steady paycheck coming in. You got to like launch it and rev up the engine. And when someone buys it, it takes off and you're good again for a little bit. By a couple of years of sanity.
Yeah. So sock it away when you got it.
That's definitely. That's all I've done for 20 years is in the good times, man, you sock it away and you don't spend it like you got money. You hold on to it because you go, this is for when I get those 2 bad years in a row.
Yeah. Antoine Dennison for $2 asks, Doug, will we see Bigfoot Bill 2D platformer? What's your take on that? Yeah,
I've got a kid, a guy who is working on it in another country right now. He's doing a kind of a playable level where you're going to be able to run back and forth with Bill for a little bit. I don't know when it's going to come out because he's kind of busy with other projects, but he had done a playable of Earthworm Jim, a fan game. He'd done a playable of Rat Fist, my game. And he's a great animator and a great programmer and a perfectionist. So I think it's going to look pretty cool. So it could happen. I'm not promising anything. And these are hobbyists, you know, for now until we get the thing funded. But it would be neat to see a game of this thing take off for the fans. So you never know.
I would love it. You know what I want to see is like one of these, like these 3D Spider-Man games where you're like the camera view is behind Spider-Man and he's swinging around. Like that's what I want to play. Like Bigfoot Bill, like doing the Kraken thing.
Yeah, with the
and
tentacle
like
whip.
swinging around and whapping cryptids and like Mothman and whatever else. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
We'll do that for the $250 million PlayStation 4 budget game. That's the one that will the accurate light ray tracing and 300-man crew.
I think it's going to happen. Speaking of happening, we have gone to $56,103. So we're having a pretty good night here.
Thanks to
already.
My backers. I appreciate it so much, man. You're my guys. You're my people.
And we had a very special guest that backed your project. Hollywood Hulk Hogan says for $2, just back Bigfoot Bill, brother.
Thank you.
I can't do a Hogan. But I butchered it for $2.
I would tear my shirt if I could in solidarity with brother, my brother.
With the Hulkster.
I'm going to tell you something right now, brother.
Maybe we should, here's what we should do. We should all do this show hairy-chested and naked in honor of the dearly departed Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, well, I grew up and it was a big controversy that he did a photo spread for Playgirl. And he was like a total, and I just grew up with him, right? He was in Deliverance, was his first kind of big breakout role. And he's always chewing his gum. He's like, he was in Cannonball Run that's Cecil's character is kind of based on Dom DeLuise in that movie. It's just an awful movie, by the way, but I saw it in the theater. Cannonball Run. And he was great in Boogie Nights. Remember that role? I saw that.
I did.
That was kind of his big comeback because he was like all washed up and couldn't get any roles. And that was a real meaty role for him to play. And that was really kind of the last big thing I remember him in. That was late 90s.
Well, an icon has left us. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he just was he dotted the landscape of my childhood. Just being around in the magazines and on TV and different things. So.
Yeah, he's like the 70s still alive. You know what I mean? He's like the 70s still walking around. He was in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Dolly Parton. He was in Semi-Tough with Chris Christopherson. I mean, just he's
my
good.
grandfather loves Dolly Parton. He just had, he was all about Dolly Parton, and he is 86.
Yeah,
still out there hustling cows.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I mean, he's that we've thinned the herd a little bit, but he's out there every day.
He's a cow puncher. Puncher.
It's awesome. Yeah, that was Elizabeth's grandfather as well, and he passed just before I met her. But he was out there and doing the cows and until one of them pinned him and took him out. So he went down the way he I think that's the way he wanted to go.
That's how he'd do it. That's how he'd do it.
So,
I love it. That is that's an honorable way to go.
I think so. Absolutely. Doing what you love.
That's how Mufasa died. See, by a will.
Yeah.
Remember Mufasa? He got the Mufasa treatment. That's a king's death.
It is absolutely. It is an honorable way to go. A working man's way. So, well, we kind of got depressing there talking.
I know. Let's talk about death of family members, horrible animal accidents.
Oh my gosh! How do I transition from that?
This is the feel-good show of the year.
I'm looking for the chat for like a jumping off point.
Someone help!
Somebody help! We're in a downward spiral here. I don't know what the chat's talking about. They're the Turd Ferguson.
Oh, there's the name. Oh, we're using real names, are we?
Yeah. All right. What do we talk about next? What else is on your mind? Like I just literally ran out of topics.
I wanted to talk about being on YouTube because just this whole kind of new art form and discipline that we're doing, and we're growing an audience and putting on a show, so often. How's that hitting you with, because obviously Twitter's a living hell, but YouTube is your show, right?
I feel, yeah, I love it. I took about a week and a half away from doing it. I would pop on a couple shows, like Mike Miller's Aloha Hour. I've been doing that just about every night, just to stay in everybody's good graces here.
Yeah.
But I found that I really missed doing this and having my own space with my 166 cool cats here with us. And I actually like this kind of talking one-on-one thing. The big super chat things are fun too, but like you get so many people and you feel like you got to talk really fast and just to get your word in, and then people talk over each other and it can be a little bit of chaos, and it's kind of hard to mine any deeper topics because somebody's going to come in with like an aside and then the topic changes, and so you can't get very deep. So I like this.
All your kids can look up Doug TenNapel on YouTube and check out my channel. I usually do an interview every day with someone. I've interviewed Patricia Heaton, and Michael Nelson and I are always witnessing to Nurkish. And we talk theology, we talk politics, we talk work ethic, we talk family. And I think it's something that you don't find anywhere else on YouTube. So look up Doug TenNapel on YouTube and come to the Doug Show.
I mean, could you imagine, speaking of Steven Spielberg, like being a fly on the wall for a Spielberg Kasdan conversation or something like that in like 1982? I mean, it's just like, wow. Like,
have you ever read the transcripts to some of your conversations?
Yes.
When you're developing Indiana Jones is great.
Oh, they're so cool. Yeah. Somebody made like a fan-made film about it.
Oh,
you've seen that?
I have not seen that.
It's around here. I think it's around here on YouTube somewhere. It's like a fan-made recreation, and they're like, they take some of the transcripts and then like fill it in, I think, with like, dramatizations, and then they're like, there's doobies in the ashtray, and they're all a little stoned, and George Lucas is there, and I think it's more of a comedic bit, but I think they take some of the general tone and like try to make it funny and silly. It's a good one.
I thought it was weird how in that conversation, when they're pitching for Indiana Jones, the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, Lucas had come up with a mine car chase. So I had read the original script of Indiana Jones. And that mine car chase that's in Temple of Doom was in the original Raiders of the Lost Ark. And obviously they couldn't afford to shoot it, and they put it in that movie. They just cut it and slapped it in. It's exactly like it reads. That showed up in Temple of Doom. And it was there awesome. in the original Raiders of the Lost Ark script.
Do you think they were thinking in advance about like the commercial aspects of this stuff beyond? Like now we have like, the Raiders of the Lost Ark rides, where you can you get on kind of, you have that experience. Do you think they were just trying to thrill people with movie tickets, or did they have a vision beyond, a commercial vision beyond selling tickets at the theater?
It's hard to tell. Certainly by Indiana Jones, they knew there was such a thing, but Lucas invented that with Star Wars. So, and he was wise enough to keep the toy rights. So he took a cut in his directing fee to hold on to the toy rights. And I was there in 6th grade when those toys came out, and no one had ever seen toys move like that before. It was always just Barbie and G.I. Joe and yo-yos before that. When Star Wars toys came out, it was huge. And I got to imagine Lucas had a vision for it, to sacrifice his salary, which he needed. He was starving when he worked on Star Wars, and to hold on to that. And that's what ended up funding all of Skywalker Sound, and the build out of ILM was all funded by the toys. So all he did on Indiana Jones was he emulated the same thing that he did on Star Wars. So back when Lucas was a kid, they would go to the Bijou, and for a nickel, you could see a newsreel, a cartoon, and there was a serialized soap, say, of Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers, and he had the little sparkler in the back of the ship, and it was a black and white thing, really bad radio shows like, Flash Gordon, what are we going to do? An alien guy was in like really bad underwear or something, had just like antennas on his head and some tinfoil. And that's what really, really inspired Lucas. Was he made Star Wars to look like how he felt when he was 5. See what I mean? He didn't
Yeah.
make it look old, but it fit. The Star Wars was a space opera, and that's what he went to see as a kid, was a space opera, a soap opera in space. And and the effects happened to be there at a certain time, and he had the amazing vision to pull off Star Wars. I don't even know how you do that. I'm a pretty creative guy, and I just feel like having vision that big and taking it serious and doubling down on it. And the Star Wars shoot was just a disaster after another, and it had one believer on board the whole time, and it was George. And I don't care how much he ruins things after that fact. Star Wars is a movie that shouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
So he invented that template. So now let's go to Indiana Jones. The space epic was one kind of adventure, and the other one was very much like Indiana Jones, because people were really big in the early 1900s on thieving and exploring the pyramids. This is when King Tutankhamun's tomb was dug up. And so it inspired a whole generation of adventure shows of these guys who were like Indiana Jones. They might have a whip or they might have a gun, and they're going into King Solomon's mines, and they're trying to dig up treasure and find artifacts. And so he did the same thing with Star Wars. He made that serialized little show that he saw when he was 5, and he made an adult version of it that made it wonderful for an adult. That's what Raiders of the Lost Ark is. He did it twice within about 3 years. He's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, my childhood, I mean, I'm a few years younger than you, Doug. So,
Yeah.
But those things were, I was born in 78. So like these things were new in the world as I manifested my consciousness, as I came on board and started becoming aware of my surroundings. These things were the things that were cool and new that the older kids were into and that were around in the culture. So I was like sort of the first generation that was sort of baptized in it all without a prior knowledge of what was lacking before it. You know what I mean?
It was normal for you.
Yes.
Let me set the stage for Star Wars real quick. This is after the 60s, where America was in almost a civil war. We had campuses, students were shot, students were revolting and attacking teachers. They had bombings almost every day in New York by radicals. And Kennedy was assassinated, C.S. Lewis died, Aldous Huxley died, all these great authors and these people left. Martin Luther King was shot, Ted Kennedy's brother was shot. You had Vietnam War, which people considered a fake war. And we were really angry in the 70s. Drug culture blew up. The sex revolution turned into an HIV, a venereal disease revolution with the disco era. People were jaded. Best Picture went to something like Chinatown. Best Picture went to something like Annie Hall by Woody Allen. Just sarcastic, jaded, angry. And here comes Star Wars. It's a fairy tale in space, a myth. We had never seen anything like it before. That is the stage you have to understand, that Lucas was not copying his culture. He brought in just this outside vision that no one had ever seen before. So I was old enough to see it before and then during and after, and you were born into this much brighter, boppy time that in the 80s now, we define the 80s by Amblin movies, Back to the Future and just all the wonderful E.T.
When I was in kindergarten or first grade. Oh.
Yeah, Close Encounters was slightly before your time, but these were good time, fun, almost like Pinocchio, dreamy, optimistic movies. That was really, to me, that's what Lucas and Spielberg created.
And contextualizing that as I got older, I just started my older is in like my mid 20s. I didn't realize how magical a time I was sort of nascent in, and like these movies were made for the kids of our generation, and we were treated we were treated to these things. We were given these beautiful art forms that seemed made just for us.
Yeah. Made for everyone.
They were.
Like
They were.
Who would E.T. not appeal to? Who would Star Wars not appeal to? Who doesn't enjoy Indiana Jones?
Yeah. But
It's for everyone.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, the way you put that, just so beautiful. I think we need to take this clip out. That needs to be a cut clip, and I think it needs to be its own like 2 minute separate video.
Yeah,
of you just explaining this, because I think that's just, you really touched. You nearly made me tear up.
Yeah, you could have been born into a dark, jaded culture, and instead you were born into one that was blowing your imagination away.
It made me who I am. I probably wouldn't be here because Indiana Jones and Star Wars were very much a part of my, especially Indiana Jones. He's my hero. Besides my dad.
So they reset culture and they repaired culture from what it was. We were all back on the same board again in the 80s. And now we're back to split apart and stabbing each other again.
You know what? But we have to rise to the challenge to say we need to remind the culture, remind people what it's like to have a beautiful myth and how important they are, how healing it can be, and how important it is to the next generation of children, so that we can nurture them in beauty and art and heroes that are actually heroic and virtuous, even with their flaws. You know, it's about good and evil, and it's clearly delineated, and it's simple, both simple and beautiful.
Yeah, we want kids to have something that that they can go to and laugh and be inspired by, and strive to live up to. You know, I haven't met someone who's as good as Luke Skywalker, the old school Luke Skywalker, but you know, we all wanted to rise up and be that hero. We wanted to be Superman, Christopher Reeve Superman. We wanted to be that guy. Like, these are guys that make you want to stand up and stand for something, and believe that there's, you know, that there's something worth fighting for. Now we're so jaded. It's like, nothing's worth sacrificing, fighting for. I'll just take the money. You know, it's like, who takes a stand, a principled stand? That's where we need to, that's what literature has always provided. If you go back to Shakespeare and you go to, you know, Treasure Island, you know, you go into Moby Dick, these are like stories about people kind of put in the meat grinder, and the man who you are rooting for is the one who takes the stand, even if he gets cut down. You know what I mean? It's more important to stand and stand for anything than it's more important to be right than to win. And today it's more important to win than to be right.
Yeah. And that just creates an ugly, ugly world.
Yeah. It becomes pragmatism, where you go, I'll do anything it takes to win. And I don't care how many of my friends I have to throw into the bus, or sacrifice my family's values, or be crass and cruel. And that's not what soaring societies and great people and even great literature is made of. It will not stand the test of time, because 100 years from now, people won't want to read that stuff because it's obviously false. Only true things stand the test of time.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I don't know. I think I can top that. I think this, like I said, I'm going to cut this, and it's going to be its own thing. I'm going to make another video, and this is going to be like Doug TenNapel on. I'll come up with a title.
Yeah, on story and morals. This is what
story
drives
and morals.
me.
I like that. Yeah,
this is what drives me, and this is true for all the comic book artists and readers and writers out there. Is if you just make something, if you're just trying to shock people and screw around, then that won't keep you working hard at your craft. What keeps Mitch devoted to his craft and me devoted to mine is we take it very seriously, and not just the aesthetic or the structure of a story, but the why we're doing this. Because stories the pen is mightier than the sword, and it is a mighty weapon to fling, and we ought not take that responsibility lightly. We're all kind of these red rooster heroes, men of honor, doing our best. And that will drive you at your writing station or your art station to do the best job you can to help people see the greatest story they can behold. That will keep you driven at your job when you run out of gas and when you're bored and when it's hard on the final page of the book. You know?
Well, you
That's
put
what
so
keeps me
much
going.
time, you put so many hours into learning a discipline that you're aspired to do. Like, for me, if it's comics and storytelling, and same thing for you, adding video games and whatever else. But like, you spend all these hours and you make all these sacrifices, and unless I think you're truly encouraged and inspired as a kid, like you don't see through, even in the moment, you can't see the longer vision. Like, why am I sacrificing all this stuff? You just feel like you're doing it. There's something you have to be led to the sacrifice and say, hey, you sacrifice for long-term gain. You don't go and party in high school. Maybe a little bit, but like you skip the parties. You stay in the lab. You're in your room drawing comic book covers and whatever else. At a certain point, though, you build the skill level, and then you think, what am I going to do with this? Like, you need a mission. Like, there has to be a purpose to the sacrifice.
Mission. That's a good word.
What's your mission, Doug? Like, what do you see? That's kind of where we're taking this conversation here. What's your mission with the sacrifice you made to get where you are, to have this level of skill, to build your network, and what's the mission?
I'm here to cut the head off of culture and replace it with a bigger heart is my mission. I'm here to tear down false ideas, and I do that with a song and with a smile. I'm going to do that by making people laugh, by making them really. It's through laughter and through joy. When you see it, when the first time you saw Indiana Jones, you felt joy. Bum, bada bum, bum, bum. When you hear that song, your heart just starts going, yeah, I'm in. That's what I want people to do, to turn every page and go, oh, I'm in. This is working, and their suspension of disbelief goes where they put their head in that page. That is just gets me so high, their head is in your story and they're turning the page going, what happens? What happens to Red Rooster? What's he going to do? This seems like an impossible situation. How does he get out? You have cast a spell on an audience, and people love good stories. I love a good story, and I'm just leaning in. If I finally find a good one and I can trust the author, I go, I'm in all the way. And if someone throws down Sausage Party on you, you're just going like, I can't trust you. I might laugh, but I'm not in all the way.
Yeah, the trust is a big thing. And if you break the trust too many times, then you kind of broken a person. Like, they're not going to give anything a chance.
Yeah.
They're going to go and do something else.
You've soiled a customer, perhaps for your whole industry. They might just go, well, I don't really like games. They're overly violent.
This is one of the reasons I feel very, very compelled to come out and sell Red Rooster and try to sell it to the comic book audience that I felt like I was watching walk away, and why I find myself so, I have no other word other than disgusted to watch comic book professionals treat the customers with incivility. I reject the notion entirely. No matter what political views they are, no matter how radical they are, and no matter how much I might disagree with them, the art that we express is a chance to change a heart and a mind, and to just impugn them or castigate them or paint them with a broad brush, or block bot them or whatever it is. I just don't understand it. It seems so, it's an anathema to everything that I feel called to do within the arts and within comic books and storytelling.
Yeah, good stories are for everyone. Groundhog Day is for everyone. You know what I mean? It's like every Close Encounters is for everyone. Jaws is for everyone. It's like the idea that I'm going to try to write hidden messages and stuff in my books to try and cut off a piece of my audience or insult them. That's not what they're paying for. They're paying for a roller coaster. Like, they're just going like, show me the good time. Show me something that I care enough to share with my kids that is safe enough. And I have parents reading my books to their kids. In fact, the parents sneak off and read them themselves first to make sure they're safe. And then they go, I wanted to find out what happened. I go, yeah, I got you. I got you. And they feel safe to give them to their kids. And the kids, I've got so many great readers. My Scholastic books have just pushed my books into schools and around the world and librarians. And I'm just, it's an honorable position to get to be a storyteller. It is a trusted position. And you're right about Comicsgate and all the big comics that are pushing people away and people running away from a medium. It is not the medium's fault. It is the people who put what is crooked in their head and heart in a book and give it to you. It's their fault. And we're just saying, we're not one of those. We're not putting crooked stuff in. We're making Star Wars and Indiana Jones. We're laying down, the cheddar, the good cheese and the good fun and again, just good stuff that everyone loves. Everyone loves pizza. We're laying down the pizza. And I just feel like when someone gives me money to make something, that is a moral contract that I have to live up to, and I have to give them that entertainment that they're paying for. And that's just a sacred contract. And if you burn that contract, you only burn it once and you've lost them, for good.
Yeah. Speaking of money, people giving up, Joey R75, thank you for $14.99. We want these kids and my kids to feel what we felt. Absolutely. Yeah. I felt the magic. And I just, as a kid, like who was just bathed in it, I just assumed that like, it was always like that for all kids of all times. And
when I was raised, I got to read Spider-Man in 8th grade and Micronauts and all these great comic books, and they weren't loaded up with a bunch of messages and compromises. And if someone else won't do that job, then we will. We'll do Red Rooster and Bigfoot Bill, because that's what we're about, is we're going to lay down a good story that I used to read when I was in 8th grade. We want all of you to read that too. Good stuff.
Absolutely. That is why Red Rooster was created. That's why Bigfoot Bill was created. And that's why I think we're going to march ahead and create many, many more things and find more brothers and sisters in arms who want to do the same thing. And we're going to march a different path, I think, than some of the other, the culture seems like then other people want to take culture. Yeah. And I think this is my hunch, and I say this at every meeting I have, that there's a massive, massive underserved, and I feel like I want to be in the position of a servant to the audience. Yeah. And there's a large amount of underserved people and many millions underserved children who aren't given what I think they really would love. That's something that speaks to them. I think they're talked down to, or their values aren't honored appropriately or cultivated, and that's part of my mission. That's for sure. Yeah.
Or that just what's wrong? What happened to a good story, man? A good story well told. A good story well told is what we're about, and that's the bottom line of everything. And if you're not about that, then get out of the business. It's weird though, because we used to be alone, Mitch. We were all separated. And we didn't know that each other existed. And you sit there in your room alone and you go, I feel like I'm the only one. What am I going to do? Culture's going to ruin me. And now we're finding each other. And I'm telling you, there are hundreds of artists and writers out there like us. Hundreds. I know a ton of them. Mm-hmm. People who give each other the secret handshake behind doors going, I can't say who I voted for. I can't say what I believe in polite company, and they're out there. And I meet them and talk to them all the time. There's a lot of allies out there. Once they see some of us being a little more vocal and defending the good charge that we're under, I think a lot more of them are going to come out and start getting some confidence and start turning this thing around, is my hope. Certainly there'll be a body of work that you can easily find.
I think it's just about, I mean, the creativity is out there, the talent is out there, the people are out there. I think it's just that I think now we're connecting, but there were so many roadblocks, and the roadblocks are all institutional.
Yeah.
And what we have right now, we have a chance to reset it all, to build our own institutions, to build our own pathways. And I think it'll be a great, beautiful yellow brick road, and we can all march arm in arm together down it, and watch everything go from black and white to Technicolor again.
Yeah. The institutional blocks, I don't own those companies, so I can't go in and have a say. The cultural blocks are much harder to navigate. Cultural blocks is, everyone, or not everyone, but probably 3 people with 20 accounts slamming Elizabeth on Twitter. You know what I mean? Or they come after me all the time. Those blocks, you'll never change those people, but you'll at least find each other and find partners to gain strength from. And we'll help encourage each other to ignore some of the negative people that are always going to be out there on the internet now. And as long as you do your job and maintain your thing, your people will be there for you, and your partners. Me, I'll be there for you. I'm not going anywhere. Guys.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for too long. It's been too fun.
I think we're going to do some great things. Mark C., thank you for $10. My son doesn't want quote unquote kids comics. I can't let him read most regular books today.
That's right.
We will finally get a chance to share a comic book experience. And I think that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Yep. I love it. And we're not, we don't talk down to kids. So this doesn't feel, in fact, I see other comic book companies doing kids comics, and they treat kids like they're imbeciles. And I hate that. My stuff is much more in line with, and so is Mitch's, if you look at it. I mean, this is Star Wars. This is Treasure Island. This is stuff that treats comics as literature. So it's not, just because it's kids doesn't mean it's dumb. And a lot of other comic companies do that. They just make it all looks like it's made of bubble gum or something. That's not what I read when I was a kid. It's like, you know what I mean? I was into Seventh Voyage of Sinbad by Ray Harryhausen. That was, to me, a great kid's adventure. The action and the violence is not going to damage you. It's not explicit, and we don't do explicit stuff like that. There's a whole lot of comics like that being made by 40-year-old people, 40-year-old jaded people. That's not what we do either. But there is a way to do great action, great suspense, where you really care about you feel like the character's life is threatened, and there may be some characters that don't make it. That's real life, and kids have always had a good grasp of that when they see characters fall heroically in everything from Westerns to sci-fi, So I just want to say that I take this stuff very seriously.
Yeah,
very
likewise.
seriously. I'm not screwing around.
Yeah, no, it's very, very important. And I think we have a similar mission, and I think I'm glad to hear there are many, many, many more people out there. I'm sure you can meet many of them on Doug's YouTube show.
Woo!
What's your YouTube channel, Doug?
You look up Doug TenNapel. It's my first and last name put together. Doug TenNapel. You look it up on YouTube, and I just talk like I'm talking to Mitch. Really, we talk comics, we talk life, we talk culture, and it's fun. I just try and have a lot of fun. I did do a Taco Bell review on the road on my road trip when I went to Tennessee. I ate Taco Bell on the air.
How was Taco Bell? I haven't been there in like 10 years.
It was their stunt food is kind of my bottom line. Is their stuff is kind of done for stunts with the Dorito coating on things, and not necessarily great food. I had a better time at Arby's. We did an Arby's review also.
That's another one I haven't been to in probably 15 years.
Hey, their brisket sandwich is worth getting.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would never go near an Arby's.
No, I think I can't do. If Elizabeth catches me eating fast food, I'll get an earful.
You'll get in trouble. Well, we're here in the South, so we do a lot of Chick-fil-A.
I do love Chick-fil-A. I can get away with that. Yeah, she's generally okay with that.
Big, meaty, crispy chicken breast, the spicy chicken
It's
sandwich.
so good.
But the
Yeah.
waffle fries are kind of, come on, guys. You got to figure out French fries.
They could be a little crispier or something, like a little
Yeah.
soggy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a little soggy, kind of uneventful. They're a stunt too. They do the waffle shape. And it's like, you know what? Get over the stunt. Let's get some fries going.
Yeah, I agree with you. Doug, I think I'm going to wind the chat down. I think we had a
Good.
great conversation, and I think
Yeah,
we
this is a
ended.
good time.
I think we ended really, really strong. I think everybody feels very moved in the chat. So
Good. We're at
I don't know if we could
56-1
top
on Bigfoot Bill. They really
Yeah.
helped me out a lot, and I appreciate that to all of you. I'm gonna do nothing but tell stories.
Yeah, we just had a big super chat. So Joey R75 sends $20. Harlan Ellison, rest in peace. He had no media when he died. Harlan Ellison. Tell us about that, Doug.
Sure. Harlan Ellison is a big sci-fi writer. He worked on the what's the Vampire Hunter anime. He's just a fan. He's a famous sci-fi storyteller. Just one of the great writers of our time. Knocked out scripts, knocked out short stories, knocked out novels. Harlan Ellison. And he did. He passed away and largely went away. And one of my friends interviewed him right before he died, and had recorded an interview with him that he did not want released, so he didn't release it. But I was just talking to him about life and God, because Harlan Ellison was kind of an atheist, and very interesting conversation. I got to hear it, and he knew he was going to die, and it's very weird to see talented writers and artists that when they die, no one remembers them. And I went to the Louvre, and there's just thousands of artists doing amazing works that I've never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be in it for the beauty of the art itself and not for what it does for your name. You have to serve the story and your audience, because really that's probably all that'll last.
Absolutely. And I think with that, we're going to end the broadcast. Everyone, go check out Bigfoot Bill. I think it's going to be the next big thing in games, maybe video games, maybe a cartoon show. I don't know. It backpacks. I see it all. I see the vision. I get it. I can't wait to get my copy. Thank you very much, Doug TenNapel, for joining us tonight. Red Rooster, it is also still on Indiegogo and in-demand store. I'm sure you guys have already backed that, though. So,
Mitch, this was fantastic. Can I get you on my show?
Absolutely. Yeah,
right,
anytime.
I'll ding you sometime, and we'll do one together. I'd love to come back on again before the Indiegogo vanishes in 6 days.
6 days. Yeah, 6 days left, everybody. So the clock is ticking on Bigfoot Bill. Definitely get your copy. Love you all. Have a great night. Thank you, Doug.
Oh.